Chapter 6. The Cybex Military Confidentiality Barrier. From the bridge of the Bokbaruch, Jint gazed on as warship after unfamiliar warship emerged from the Vorlash portal. "Could you get me in touch with the commandant right away?" he asked the ship commander of the Bokbaruch, Logdon. "Let's try." Logdon nodded at the communications officer. Trampleblitz Squadron 1 is currently in communication with the Vorlash Count's Manor using all lines except for the emergency line, reported the officer. "Shall we use the emergency line?" Logdon shot Jint a questioning look. Jint molded over. He had something to grill Commandant Ados Raiwa about, and preferably sooner rather than later. But did it warrant using the emergency line? The reason Trampleblitz Squadron 1 was using up the regular lines was to make arrangements for supplies. They must be in quite the hurry to resupply. And that wasn't all. Exchanging such huge amounts of information meant that not only were they rushing, but also that they were going to receive massive shipments of supplies. Resupplying at normal volumes already took time. Jint was a quartermaster star pilot, so he knew that better than most. In any case, he'd have plenty of chances to talk up until the time Squadron 1 finished resupplying and left the territory nation. "Let's wait," said Jint. "As it stands, the commandant must be busy. Just let her know that I'd like to speak with her, through the Vorlash Count's Manor." "Then shall we wait for a message from the other end to respond to?" asked Logdon. "No. I just expect the commandant to be curious enough to reach out to us in between calls with the Count's Manor." Come to think of it, he thought, there are two Count's Manors in this territory nation now, the one that's supposed to be here, the Vorlash Count's Manor, and also the Hyde Count's Manor. Dropping them a line first is the thing to do. As soon as a line becomes free, try calling the commandant. "I'll be waiting in the conference room." "Do you want to make the call confidential?" asked the captain, the final question. Jint nodded. "Please do. Can't hurt to play it safe." And so he waited for Ados Raiwa in the conference room, together with Leifir and Yestesh. The air was heavy and awkward, as none of them were conversing. At last, Jint's wrist gear rang. "The line has been put through. Are you free?" came Ship Commander Logdona's voice. "Of course." Jint got to his feet. Leifir and Yestesh also got up and straightened their postures. At once, a hologram of Ados Raiwa appeared. "I apologize," said Ados Raiwa. "I should have prioritized paying you a call, but it's all been so hectic I neglected to do so." "We're just pleased to see you in good health, Leif Fabdacker," said Leifir, calling her by her noble rank. "I thank you kindly, Your Highness. It's lovely to see you in good health as well." "It's been too long, Commandant Ados Raiwa," said Jint, calling her by her military title and bowing before the hologram. "It hasn't been so long," she said, shrugging slightly and staring at them in turn. "I did expect to meet you again someday, but I didn't expect it to happen so quickly." "Me neither," said Leifir. "What a huge coincidence." "Coincidence?" Ados Raiwa suddenly laughed. "Well, I suppose you can certainly think of it that way, Your Highness." "What other way is there to think about it?" "I can't say. There's no punching bag here for me." "What do you mean?" asked Jint, but all she returned was a smile, so he dropped the subject. "Congratulations on your promotion." "Thank you," smiled Ados Raiwa. "It's such a pleasure to see my former subordinates are doing well out there, and that's all the more true with you too. I'm reminded of the dinner we enjoyed together. It almost feels like I'm paying a social call to a couple of friends. Like the war is over. The idea we'd cross paths so soon after never even crossed my mind. By the way, who is your companion?" Yestesh introduced himself. "A pleasure," said Ados Raiwa. "Now then, on to business. I have an idea what you've called me for, but allow me to ask." "First, a question," said Jint, keeping it brief. He knew she was busy. "Entry to the Kingdom of Hyde has been cut off. Could you tell us why?" Jint had actually been happy to hear this. Trampleblitz Squadron 1 was going to resupply at the Vorlash Kingdom before setting out for Hyde. Jint had been planning to revisit his home aboard the Bokbaruch, but only because he'd had no other choice. Martinho likely lacked the firepower necessary to take down the Bokbaruch, but he couldn't shake his anxiety completely. But now he'd been told Squadron 1, a corps comprised of bleeding-edge ships, would be stopping by as well. The Bakhtiarach had been a first-class patrol ship before the lion's share of its armor and armaments had been removed, but he felt much safer on a state-of-the-art warship, and for good reason. The safer the ship, the better. In fact, if at all possible, he'd have liked the raid ships to accompany the Bakhtiarach, so he could use one when communicating with the land world. Alas, the conveyance ship that had brought them news of the coming of Trampleblitz Squadron 1 also notified them that entry into the Hyde Countdom was forbidden for the time being. Those orders came from military command headquarters, lending them the same weight as an edict from the Empress herself. Even Jint, as Lord of the Countdom, couldn't overrule it. To make matters worse, they had been given neither a reason nor a time frame. And needless to say, knowing when they could enter was crucial, as they had schedules to draft and plans to implement. If they were barred from entry for a sufficiently long period, then they had no choice but to board one of the ships of Squadron 1. Unfortunately, because they didn't know the purpose behind the squadron going there, they didn't know whether there was even time to talk either. For all they knew, the squadron's objective was to launch a space raid on the planet. Maybe they were to burn down the hybrid functionality buildings all Martinez lived in. If so, they had to prevent that at all costs. "Your soldier number codes," said Ados Ryua. Huh. Jint hadn't expected that. Pull yourself together. You're not currently my subordinate. In other words, you're an outsider to me. I can't just check out military secrets like they're nothing. I need to check your clearance. 01.00.093768, said Lafier. 21.17.839951, said Jint. It'd be pointless for me, said Yestash. I'm a reserve officer, so I'm not privy to military secrets except in special circumstances. I'm sorry, Investigator Yestash, said Ados Ryua. Please don't mind me. If I can't enter the Countdom of Hyde and fulfill my work duties, then so be it. And it's the job of Lonnie Dryor to speak to the Commandant at any rate. I'm afraid it seems I'm not allowed to tell Lonnie Dryor Hader, either, said Ados Ryua. Quartermaster Rearguard Star Pilot Lin isn't cleared to know. We can tell you after we've entered the Countdom, though. You can't be serious, said Jint, astonished. I'm really sorry. But I know you realize there's nothing to be done. You're a soldier, too. What about me? Asked Lafier. You're an Imperial. You're cleared to know, Vice Hecto Commander Avriel. More so than me, even. If you were to ask after the old name of my punching bag, I'd be forced to spill. I see, said Lafier, who faced Jint. What do we do? Should I hear what she has to say, even though by all rights, you should be the one talking to her? I'm sure I don't need to tell you, Fee Lartner, said Ados Ryua, but just in case, you're forbidden to tell Lonnie Dryor. I know that. I'm a soldier, too. Jint hesitated. He trusted Lafier, but he couldn't entrust everything to her. The lives and livelihoods of the people of his home were on the line. Let me ask you one question. You're free to ask. You're not going to launch space strikes on the planet, are you? Is that why you've been glaring like that this whole time? Said Ados Ryua, a smile playing on her lips. Am I not cleared to know the answer to that either? He remarked. No, she replied without hesitation, but not in a cold or cutting way. Maybe Investigator Yestash can ask me a question I'm allowed to answer? Yes, said Yestash. He cleared his throat. The Empire holds to a handful of general principles. One of them is that unless there is some pressing urgency, the celestial bodies belonging to a star fief, especially a land world, cannot be attacked without the approval of the system's liege. To your knowledge, has that principle perhaps been revised? It hasn't budged a micron, she declared. Does this assuage your concerns, Lonnie Dryor? Not quite yet, he persisted. Do you believe my territory to be in a pressing state of emergency? Not at the moment. And further down the line? Ados Ryua furrowed her brow. A moment later, how nice it would be to see the future, Lonnie Dryor. But much to my chagrin, I can't. Jint stared hard at Ados Ryua's face. She still looked as gorgeous as all Ovs, but he thought he saw a tinge of woe in her expression. He hoped it was nothing but... I beg you, Jint whispered to the royal princess. If there's a chance of a space strike, you've got to put a stop to it, no matter what. I don't have that authority, Lafier whispered back. But I'll try. I'm begging you, he reiterated. Jint understood full well that, royal princess or no, She didn't have the power to block a military program. But he was out of options. He faced Ados Raiwa again. Before you leave, I have a favor to ask. What is it? Please drop us off at the Hyde Countdom, he requested. At present, the only way to enter the star system of his home planet was to hitch a ride with Trampleblitz Squadron 1. Alongside the raid ships, they might be able to cope with any unforeseen contingencies. It could be the case that he'd have his hands totally tied, but it sure beats stewing over the circumstances of Hyde from the next system over. I don't mind. But you won't be allowed to touch down on the land world, Lonnie Dryor. I know. I just need to get permission to communicate with the land world from orbit. I can't promise you'll be allowed to. But it's not impossible, right? All I can promise is that I'll try my best to create an opportunity for you. That's enough for me. But how will you return? There's no guarantee we'll come back here. When the order to unseal the Hyde portal arrives, it'll reach this place too, won't it? I'll have them keep this ship on standby here. If you could have it come give us word when the time comes, I'd be fine with that. I'll have you pick us up. We might not be able to wait until your ship comes, said Ados Raiwa. You might end up having to spend 2 or 3 days in an escape pod. Is that okay with you? Jint winced at the prospect, but immediately snapped to. Well, if I could get you to drop me off at the Duchy of Estodo, I can catch a flight from there. Ados Raiwa nodded. Understood, Lonnie Dryor. I'm permitting you to hitch a ride. You can use the Flickob. There are acquaintances of yours aboard that ship who I'm sure you regard fondly. And there's already someone who's hitching a ride on it, too. Who, ma'am? I can't say. Is that confidential, too? Heavens no. I just don't want to ruin the surprise. Just because I come from a noble house without a pedigree doesn't mean I'd be so gauche. Oh, okay. Understood, he replied tersely, not really in the mood to trade quips with the commandant. Now then, I'll take my leave. See you some other time, Quartermaster Rearguard Lin. I really regret that I can't give you the details of this little trek at this stage. Me too. A while later, and Lafier alone was left in the conference room, facing Ados Raiwa's hologram. Now then, let's hear it, Baroness of Febdash. I'm fairly certain Trampleblitz Squadron 1 just aims to do training exercises there, she thought. It would provide the finishing touches on their familiarization voyages. While the Hyde Countdom was a frontier territory nation that couldn't provide much in the way of support, this was a time of war. Perhaps the military brass wanted its ships to train in sectors more akin to actual war zones. Our squadron's objective is to conduct combat training exercises in the Countdom of Hyde, said Ados Raiwa, her tone stiff and formal. It appeared as though she decided, at this juncture, to place more importance on imperial court hierarchy than on military rank. Lafier felt a wave of relief. At the same time, she had to wonder whether this was worthy of confidentiality to begin with. However, our squadron consists of 12 ships. What do you mean? She tilted her head in puzzlement, but soon hit on what Ados Raiwa was insinuating. There were only 6 ships in Vorlash. You split the squadron in 2? Ados Raiwa nodded wordlessly. The purpose of the exercise is to bring the Hyde portal under control and defend it from the other half. So the other 6 ships are the enemy of the assignment, heading towards the Hyde portal from the opposite direction. That is correct. There's no contact between halves? We can't exactly be in communication with the enemy, no. In that case, the worst possible outcome came to Lafier's mind. The other ships, the enemy, might reach the Hyde portal before you. If they're not doing everything in their power to do so, they would have to be charged for insubordination. But what happens if the enemy enters the portal first and gets attacked by the land world? I don't know, said Ados Raiwa, shaking her head. But a counterattack is very much in the realm of possibility. In fact, so long as their level of firepower is unclear, a counterattack would be the obvious course of action. According to Jint, the land world can't have enough firepower to be a threat. But there isn't a way for us to make that judgment. Not for me or for my enemy ships. Can you not afford to take more discretion than normal? I'll have the Count of Hyde submit the relevant information to us. I don't have the power to compel him to do so, but the circumstances being what they are, I'm sure he'll be happy to oblige my request. Then I will make my judgment. Either way, we can't inform the enemy unit about this. You can't get in touch with them whatsoever? Contacting them would mean canceling the exercise, but the commandant had that authority. I cannot do that, she told her in no uncertain terms. I believe this squadron can shift the tides of this war. And I've already sunk so much time into this exercise. Once you suspend it, you have to start all the way from the beginning. Given we're at war, I'm afraid I must say that that's just taking things too easy. But if an unexpected contingency were to happen then, delaying the deployment of this class of ship will have an impact on the war at large. Ados Rioa's tightly pursed lips were sign enough this subject was over. Understood, said Leifier, hanging her head. I just want you to make sure to affect the land world as little as possible. Of course. A land world is an asset to the Empire, and the Star Forces aiming their cannons against land world citizens is the most reprehensible of misdeeds. Every star pilot should know that much, she said, a faint smile on her lips. The enemy commander, Hecto Commander Waryua, knows that slaughtering land peoples would tarnish his name. His counterattack would be carried out so as to yield as few casualties as possible. Jint eyed the flowers in the garden. They were brilliant flowers. They really are lackluster, he mused again. They were a rather depressing dull purple. Then Leifier came along. Don't you need to prepare to transfer ships, Jint? I'm ready. Jint kept staring at the flowers. What about you? I'm ready too. Do you want to bring these flowers with you? Didn't cross my mind, said Jint. He put a hand to his forehead. Nah, let's leave them here. There are tons in bloom on the other side. Probably too many for anyone's liking, in fact. Do you plan to touch down onto the land world? If possible. But what sort of exercise is Trampleblitz Squadron 1 going to do? For a fleeting moment, a look of anguish flashed across her face. I can't say. Is my asking some kind of hindrance? Of course not, said the royal princess, shaking her head. Then why? You know why. Because it's been made confidential. You know what my Delptunian friend told me, he said bitterly. At the moment, he didn't care if this sparked a fight between them. He said the OV can't flout the established order on a genetic level. Guess he was right. Can you think about it with your own damned head? There is a tendency not to defy the established order. That is true, she said, calmly intercepting Jint's anger in a way that surprised him. That is our lot in life. Doesn't that get under your skin? Our fates are encoded in the 4 bases of our genes. That has never made me feel any lesser a human, she asserted. Is that not true for you too? I don't have genes that define my fate. So, is your fate unrelated to your genes? Jint struggled for words. I can't say for sure. A whistle resounded in the landing deck. I'm honored to see you here, Phelan. Ship Commander Sawbash and the line of Flickob star pilots standing by his side saluted simultaneously. I thank you for giving us special permission to board, Ship Commander, said Jint, with an air of solemnity. I give you my thanks as well, said Leifier. I never dared to dream I would one day greet your highness or your excellency onto my own ship one day, said Sawbash. Please don't call me Lanyu, said Jint. I may be on leave, but I'm still a quartermaster rearguard. Then I suppose I should address you as Quartermaster Rearguard Lin, said Sawbash, wasting no time reverting to his old way of speaking. I would be grateful if you could. Sawbash turned to Leifier. I can't call you ship commander, though. That's my title. Then it can't be helped, said Leifier, looking unironically rueful. Allow me to introduce you to the crew, said Sawbash. Of course, Jint nodded. Apart from Ekriwa, he was meeting them all for the first time. After he heard their names, Jint noticed something. There's no clerk. That's right. Unfortunately, the clerk, Quartermaster Vanguard Star Pilot Durer, is currently indisposed. That makes sense. They're in the middle of handling the big resupply. Trampleblitz Squadron 1 was restocking all the more here in the Countdom of Vorlash, since they couldn't exactly hope to resupply at their destination, the Countdom of Hyde. Even so, things seem awfully hectic, said Leifier. Are you working the crew members without break? I'm afraid so. We simply don't have a second to waste. In that case, we might be imposing on you, said Jint. Oh, not at all. You were a clerk yourself, so you probably aren't aware, but non-clerk star pilots are actually rather free during resupply procedures. We're just pretending to be busy with the NCCs. Although, we are busy compared to when we're just cruising. Sabash dismissed the rest of the crew besides Ekriwa. I'm sorry, but I must return to my work tasks for a moment. Let's have ourselves a nice long chat after leaving port. Vanguard Ekriwa, please show them around. Ekriwa just saluted her silent Roger. This way, she said. Jint and Lafier looked at each other and ambled after her. Ekriwa led them to the Star Pilot mess hall. Though raid ships were bigger than assault ships, it appeared they didn't have the space for a lounge. The moment they opened the door, Fee Lartner. Immediately, a woman stepped forward and bowed deeply. Very deeply. She's got good balance, thought Jint, impressed. She looked up, but Jint didn't recognize her. Lafier, on the other hand. You're that Imperial citizen, Selnai, she said, tentatively. I'm absolutely honored you remember me, said Selnai, eyes tearing. What are you doing here? Asked Lafier. I heard your highness's ship was attacked, so I couldn't just stand there. There was a conveniently timed flight, so I got aboard without a moment's delay. Nothing could make me happier than seeing your highness is safe and sound with my own eyes. I'm so happy. Guess she hasn't got any business with me, thought Jint, who took that as his cue to enter the mess hall. There were no star pilots to be seen, as they were still engaged in the work of resupplying, but there were two people, quietly sipping their drinks. NCC leader Pavarua, he said, startled. He ended up asking the exact same question as Lafier. What are you doing here? Hey there, Quartermaster Starpilot. It's been a while, said Pavarua. Why am I here? Well, if you have to ask, I guess I'm just an extra. What, you're not gonna react to me being here, complained Samson, who was seated beside him. I mean, I half expected you to be here, said Jint, making to take a seat alongside. Commandant Adas Raiwa did tell us we'd bump into old acquaintances. No sitting, muttered Ekriwa. Huh? How come? I'm taking you to your room. Oh no, it's fine. I can spot it using the map of the ship, said Jint. You can guide me then, said Lafier. Allow me to serve your highness on your way there, said Selnai, to no one's surprise. Jint still couldn't remember who she was. He tilted his head to the side as he watched the three ladies leave, before finally sitting down. What happened to the flotilla? Asked Jint, leaving the woman's identity for later. I left it to the senior ship commander, said Samson. Didn't have a thing to do during cruise time anyway, so it worked out. It's headed this way. It's not as fast as the squadron, but it's coming as fast as possible. I told everyone to park the ships here, as in, the Vorlash Countdom unless ordered otherwise. Was that okay? Yeah, of course, Jint nodded. So, did you leave to give the area a look-see? Not as much as I did to see you. I've heard our new workplace isn't exactly the picture of stability, so if I don't talk it all out with Mine Lord, then I can't post my subordinates at their stations. When this ship happened by, I took my chance to board, and here we are. Hides their destination, too. They're here in Vorlash resupplying, and they're way faster than our flotilla. I don't mind talking, but I myself need to go see what it's like out there. I know. We'll go together, nodded Samson. By the way, what happened to Mr. Investigator? I thought he'd be with us for sure. I'm having him on standby. Looks like he doesn't care for voyages where we spin our wheels without a timetable. Yestash had mountains of work on the Bakbaruch. If the Risi Mura, former patrol ship they were on, had been cleared to accompany the Bakbaruch, it would have followed, but given the situation, it was more expedient to stay in the Vorlash Countdom. They didn't know when they'd be able to return to the Hyde Count's manor. By the by, said Jint, lowering his voice, do you know what this exercise is about? No, said Samson, at normal volume. I asked, but their lips were zipped. Are you saying they wouldn't even tell a lord like you? Small wonder I'm out of the loop. You can't speculate? Samson had been in the forces for longer, and he'd been going alongside this squadron all this time. Jint figured he must have some idea. You want what my gut says? By all means. Well, as far as I know, there's only one exercise that involves blockading a territory nation. I reckon it's a mock battle. I know that much, said Jint, slightly disappointed. Any other thoughts you might have? What are you so afraid of, Mine Lord? Don't tell me you suspect this is an attack force set to strike Martinu. I wouldn't go that far, said Jint, shaking his head. Ados Raiwa had at least done him the favor of shooting that possibility down. I'd be more at ease if it were just this corps doing the mock battle, If they were to get attacked by the land world, we could ensure the counterattack would be minimal. But if the other enemy corps gets to the Countdom first, then the worst might happen. I think you're worrying over nothing, said Samson. I heard the Bakburuch got attacked from the surface, too, of course. But the damage was barely notable, wasn't it? Any Star Forces commander with their head screwed on is gonna ignore an attack that weak. How can you be so calm? Guess it's got nothing to do with you, huh? Course it's got to do with me. It's the place that'll be giving me work. Yeah, you'll have plenty of work up in space, said Jint, his tone getting sharp. Sure, but having a land world nearby to get away from it all is pretty indispensable, replied Samson, pretending not to notice the barbs in Jint's words. Come to think of it, I've been meaning to ask you, has Martinia got any good booze? I've got no idea, he said, not having been there since early in his life. What does it matter? Calm down already, said Samson, his voice low but carrying. I get how you feel. Jint was aware he was losing his cool. That didn't mean he could just swallow down his crescendo of emotion. Is that right? If I ever had the slightest misgiving that my beautiful planet of Midgrat could be in harm's way, I'd blow my lid too. By comparison, you're actually keeping it together, mine lord. Please stop poking fun at me. I'm not. It's the honest truth. You seemed so composed when you entered that I thought you might not have realized there was a chance they were gonna run a training exercise in the Hyde Countdom. Though it didn't take long to see through that veneer of calm. Was it that obvious? Said Jint, finally beginning to pull himself back together again. Why do you think I'm praising you? And let me tell you, I'm truly ecstatic I get to wait upon mine wise and great lord. I'm getting a feeling you're poking even more fun at me. I lack your shining virtue. Never mind, what do you think I should do? Is there anything I can do? Sorry, that's not really a question I can answer. So there really is nothing I can do, in the end. I'm just saying, don't ask me. I've got no clue if there's even an enemy corps, let alone which'll get there first. But you're on this ship right now. If this ship gets there faster, you may be able to prevent an attack from happening to begin with. That'll cut the probability of an incident in half. And wouldn't that be amazing? But can we really put a stop to it? If push comes to shove, are you willing to mutiny? Mutiny? Jint was dumbfounded. The idea had never occurred to him. Mutiny. How about you take the bridge and attack the flagship? They really won't have time to care about surface strikes then. Jint interpreted this as a joke and smiled. Would you be a pal and back me up if that happens? I dunno, said Samson, tilting his head in doubt. Guess it depends on the circumstances. Don't want to start a fight we can't win. Please don't expect suicidal levels of loyalty from me, said Pavarua. I'd really hate to get tossed into the of hell. Oh, there's no need to fear the of hell. What makes you say that? Ship Commander Sabash is a sensible man. He'd grant us a painless death before we ever got dragged to the of hell. You plan on imposing on Vice Hecto Commander Sabash to the very end? When did you get to be such a degenerate, Inspector Supervisor? Get to be? I was just holding myself back in front of my subordinates. You sure pulled the wool over our eyes. Samson looked Jint's way. In any case, this is where this chat ends. Maybe you'll be able to do something. Maybe you won't. You're the lord of a frontier territory nation. We're just your servant vassals, and you're squaring off against the Empire. You don't have all the power. If, in the end, you don't do what you could have done, then you can gnash your teeth all you like. But only after.